Please join me in welcoming Councilman Chris Herndon.
Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? Good. Welcome to the alumni family. I know, it's a great feeling, isn't it? This is so funny for me, or I should say interesting, because as I'm ending my city council career, what got me into Denver City Council was the Leadership Foundation. I was going through Leadership Denver as I was running for office, and I find it fitting as my last keynote as a council member, I'm speaking to you, the Impact Denver class. So can we please give a round of applause for Jenna and all the work that she does? Let's get into this. So, congratulations, are you ready? It seems like such an interesting question, like, what do you mean, am I ready? Are you ready to make the impact? You're Impact Denver. What impact are you ready to make? And it's a rhetorical question because you have to be. Because if I show you, like, well, what's going on in the world? Well, there's a lot of crazy going on in the world. I don't know about you. I've had this slide for years, and it's funny, the faces haven't changed. They're still making that crazy impact. And I look like you need to be ready to take on these challenges. But you know what? As you stop and look at this picture, maybe just the answer to our challenges is women. Maybe we just need more women in charge, and we could have done that. And that solves our problems. That's it. That's the issue. I mean, we could have had our first female mayor, but that didn't work out. Oh, but anyway, that's a different story. All right, so now that your blood pressure has risen, because this picture has certainly stressed you out, what can I do to calm you down a little bit? So I have a sidekick who's going to help me during this presentation. You'll see him later on. And this is CJ. Yes, this is my son. That's my pride and joy. He just turned 8 years old last week. This is his kindergarten photo. Now, I don't know what your kindergarten photo looked like. I was just happy that my shirt wasn't on backwards when I took my kindergarten photo. So this is CJ, and I remember he came out of his room, he's ready for school. I'm like, buddy, you are really dressed up for your photo. What's going on? He's like, Daddy, this is how you dress. I know. That's so sweet. I mean, for all the parents in the room, there's a moment where they just melt your heart, and the next moment you give them away for a ham sandwich. So this is CJ. You'll see him later on, but he's going to help me prove a point later on. So what are we going to talk about? How can you make that impact? And more importantly, how can you lead? Because for whatever reason, the word leader is too much for people. Like if I was going to ask you who thinks they're a leader, some hands would go up and some people would say no, like, no, I don't feel I'm a leader. Okay, set it aside. I want you to lead. Like it's something you do. Exercise leadership, it's a muscle, but you have to practice. So how can I lead? How can I make that impact? So here's something I want you to think about. You need to be ready to tell your story. What is your story? And what makes you who you are? So let me give you background. So we're in Kosovo, my first deployment. I was in Kosovo, I was a platoon leader, I'm talking to some of my troops, and we're just kind of bantering back and forth. And I remember them saying, sir, you're an officer. You were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. And I thought about that, I was like, wow. My soldiers knew I was Lieutenant Herndon. They knew I was from Kansas City. But I never really told them my story, like who I am. So, and we typically don't do this, so I'm going to help you by telling you mine. This photo was taken in Des Moines, Iowa, in the early 1980s. So if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you've got my Aunt Lori, my Uncle David, you see the overalls, that's great-grandpa. Next to him is my dad. In the middle, you got great-grandma. Then my mother, you've got my Aunt Missy, you see the cowboy hat in the back, that's my grandpa. That kid being held, that's my cousin Chauncey. Holding him is his dad, Uncle Eric, my Aunt Missy. Poking his head around the corner, that's Uncle Mike. You got the first kid on the right, that's my cousin Melissa eating her shirt. Then you got my brother, then you got my Aunt Lori, and that cute, adorable kid tugging on that shirt. That is me. But I will tell you that, if you look at that kid's forehead, and then you look at that kid's forehead, there's no denying that is my son. As I tell people, big brains. Big brains are in my family. But let's go back. So let's go back to my story. So this, as I jokingly say, this is what a silver spoon looks like. But if I tell you about my mother and my father, got divorced. So I come from a broken home. I can tell you about my uncle on the right, who's my closest uncle, died of a heart condition suddenly. I can talk about my cousin Chauncey. Let me back up. His father, my Uncle Eric, who sadly had made a series of poor decisions most of his adult life in and out of prison. And then his son, my cousin Chauncey, made some poor decisions as a teenager, got involved in gangs, was a suspect in a murder, probably did it, and then he was murdered himself. So if you look at this picture and say, look at that kid tugging on a shirt, comes from a broken home, knows loss, losing a relative, a close relative, family members in and out of prison, family members in gangs. What happens to that kid? You probably wouldn't think he ends up at West Point. And you probably wouldn't think with that wreath on his chest, he makes the dean's list. And you probably would never believe he'd be hanging out with President Obama as he visits his district in 2012. And if you don't believe this photo, you probably wouldn't think he ends up at the White House meeting President Obama. And it's funny, my colleague, now Clerk Lopez, Councilman Lopez was next to me, who took this photo. And as you can see, you see me, you see the president, and to this day, I have no idea whose hand that is. That just came in just at that moment to ruin my photo. But this is my story. I go back to this kid. This is who I am. But you know, it's uncomfortable to talk about some hard things. But everybody's going to see your success and assume it came easy. Oh, well, he's a West Pointer. Of course his life was easy. Oh, she's doing this. Of course, it's because she doesn't know what struggle means. We have to be ready and comfortable to tell our story. Because there's somebody who's going through something right now that you've already been through. And if you tell your story, that could be the one thing that gets them through. But you know what, Chris? It just doesn't feel right. Okay, so let me ask this question. Why are you telling the story? Are you telling the story to lift up yourself? Or are you telling the story to lift up others? You've got to be ready to tell your story. Next thing I want you to think about, finding your passion. Because leading is hard. But it's easy if you're leading in a manner or a progress or a career or profession that you love. So we're fast forwarding, I'm now out of the military. And so I'm working, I had a couple of jobs. I worked for United Airlines, that's what brought me to Denver. I was a store manager at Walmart. But something didn't feel right. Like you just kind of have that gut feeling like something's off. Something's off, I can't figure it out. And so for the first time, I was volunteering a lot. So I bought my house in Central Park. I got on my registered neighborhood organization. So I was registered neighborhood, I was the outreach co-chair. I got involved in my church, True Light Baptist Church in Montbello. I volunteered for a semester to help some Montbello High School students improve their math, language arts skills. I brought a financial literacy course to my church. I was doing a financial literacy course. I was like, man, this is interesting. I'm volunteering a lot. What's going on? And so I thought to myself, you know what? I miss public service. Now, let me back up again and ask you this question. If money didn't matter, what would you do? Typically, something pops up in our mind. So if something came in your mind, I would say this: find a way to do that and make money. If something didn't pop into your mind, here's my follow-up question. What do you do with your free time? Because in my free time, I got on my registered neighborhood organization. In my free time, I was volunteering to help students increase their math and language arts skills, teaching a financial literacy course. My free time was service. And so I realized I wanted to serve. That's it. Service was my calling. So once you figure out what that is, spend every waking moment to get there. And so that's why I decided I'm going to run for office. Having no idea what that meant, but that's what service was to me. So I'm running for office. Figure out what your passion is. But when you do, get ready for the cliff. Because here's what's happened. So I'm working at Walmart. It's January of 2011. So I let my boss know, I'm a store manager, I let my boss know, hey, I'm running for office, the election's in May. I just wanted to give you that heads up. Great, best of luck. So we get to March, so we're 2 months before the election. Nothing's going right. Struggling with the campaign. Struggling at the store. Just burning the candles at both ends. So I go to my boss right about the end of the month, realizing things are not going well. Is it okay if I take a leave of absence for the next month? Have the election in May, come back, don't swear until July. I'm just asking for that. So he's like, all right, good. Come back and see me in a week, we'll talk about it. Thank you. So I go and see my boss. I walk in, it's my boss, and it's Crystal. So in case you're wondering who Crystal is, Crystal's the HR manager. Now, for those of you who don't know this, if you go into a meeting and it's your boss and the HR manager, it's not going to go as well as you think it will. Because for some strange reason, I walked into that office with a smile on my face. Don't know why, I was in a good mood. So I walk in, Mike's like, hey, Chris, take a seat. I sit down, hey, I want to chat with you about your leave of absence you requested. How are things going at the store? It's like, well, we had a good inventory, not as great what I would like, but there have been some struggles. He's like, yeah, I know, and that's why I have Crystal here to document this conversation. Should have caught that. Should have caught that. So your performance is struggling, and I'm here to write you up. Right then on the spot, got written up. And if the direction of the store continued, I was going to lose my job. And so he says, I know you're probably devastated about this. We want to give you a few days off, take a week, and come back to the store, quit the campaign, and we'll welcome you back with open arms. So I got up, just devastated. And if you knew at the time of the campaign wasn't going well, clear underdog, struggling with endorsements, struggling with fundraisers, things were going bad. So I took those few days, like you said, I campaigned the entire time, and when I went back into the store, I quit. So I say get ready for the cliff, because there's going to be a time where you're just going to have to jump. And I used to use the analogy of a fork in the road, but I think a cliff is more powerful. Because if once you jump, what's the point of looking up? Gravity has taken hold. And I will tell you, it was painful. It was painful to do that. But I found this quote that I thought was powerful. So if we walk fearlessly and tenderly into the crucible of a painful ending, we will find gifts for us there that we never could have seen had we continued to cling to the safety of the familiar. How often are people afraid to dare, to dream big, to jump? But if you want to lead, you want to make that change, make that impact, get ready to jump. Get ready to jump over and over again. And I will tell you, who's someone that has, I couldn't imagine my life without jumping, because I'm doing exactly what I should have been doing for the past 12 years. But you have to be ready to jump. But before you jump, know your passion. What were you called to do? Staying humble. It's interesting because when I think about the attributes that those who lead are in dire need of, it is humility. So 95+% of the time, I always want to introduce myself as Chris. Because leading is about connections, and it's easier to connect with somebody if they're connecting with a person, not a title. But you know a lot of people that like to introduce themselves as CEO so-and-so, state rep so-and-so, like they have these cool titles. But I am Chris. Council person is what I do. And for 40 decades, I've had all these titles: cadet, new cadet, lieutenant, captain, store manager, operations manager, council member, council president, council member again. And in 30+ days, One title's gone. But what if that title meant more to me than my name? What would that be like? Because there's going to be a point in your life where there are no titles. And all that's left is your name. And if you're not comfortable with that, I imagine that would be a very lonely place. So I'm Chris. I'm no different than anybody else. And more importantly, I'm no better than anybody else. Staying humble. But for this, and I have an analogy for you. I forgot about this. So this is the story. So once again, we're back as a lieutenant. So in the military overseas, a 3-day holiday in the States is a 4-day holiday. And so this was the time we decided we were going to go snorkeling in Egypt on the lake. So right before we were going to go snorkeling, I remember standing up and this photo was taken. And you know this is an old photo because nobody wears Tommy tank tops anymore. But took this photo. I love this photo because for whatever reason the wind's blowing, so I look skinnier than I actually am. I probably did some curls or something right before I got my hair cut, and I'm just like, I'm tough. Like, I really like this picture. So if I was a superhero and they made a movie, like this would be the poster. And they would call it The Counselor. Like that would be the name of the movie. And so I know I lost you, didn't we? We were just talking about humility about 30 seconds ago. So, but here's what's going to happen. So when you are doing your amazing things, because everyone in here is or will be, this is how people will see you. As this larger-than-life superhero who's able to get elected, create their own company, make all this crazy change. So they will see you as a superhero. And you know what? That can be okay. Because they are looking up to you. You, however, cannot see yourself like this. Because then you're looking down to them. So, how should you see yourself? Well, here's an example. Another time when we were still in Egypt, going snorkeling. And for anyone that's gone snorkeling before, you put the fins on, and you have to do that crazy walk, so you got to get to the edge. And I just did that. Hey, Chris, where are we going? And I point in different directions, and they snapped this photo. Like, this is how you have to see yourself. As this ridiculous person who's just out to have fun and not take themselves too serious. And if you struggle to see yourself like this, find the good friend who does not care what you do. And that for me is Colonel Ralph Ware, who I graduated with from West Point, who whenever I'll call him like, hey man, I just got back from the White House. He's like, hey man, I don't care. Because if he had continued that story, he would talk about that time where you did something, that if people knew you may not be an elected official, like things like that. Those people who have those secrets, like you pray you never really offend them because your social media, you'll have to go dark. Like those are the friends that you need that will keep you humble and make you realize, that's sweet for other people, but no, I don't care about that. Those friends that'll keep you humble and make you realize you're no different or better than anyone else. So now, here's what I want to do. I come bearing gifts. I want to do what I call the phrase game. I need 3 people willing to stand up real quick. I need 3 people to stand up. Okay, I'll just keep waiting. All right, there's 1. Thank you. I have 2. No one wants to raise your hand, stand up. Some 2. All right. There we go. Thank you. Let's clap. All right. We will start over here. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to start a sentence, and I just need you to finish it. That's easy. Start, finish. That's it. So, and it's all based off of, it's tied to humility. I'm sorry, what's your name? Allie. Pleasure to meet you, Chris. So, do not take yourself. Seriously, easy. Round of applause for Allie. Yes. And I'm going to come, this is for you. Starbucks gift card. See? Had you raised your hand, or had we stood up, you could have gotten a mocha latte grande skim black, or whatever you get from it. I don't drink Starbucks, but that's what people drink. All right. I think you were second. So what's your name?
Zach.
Zach, pleasure to meet you. Hey, I hate to tell you this, they get harder. Should have got up first. Here we go. You can accomplish so much.
If you put your mind to it.
Yes, it's not what I was going to say, though. That was a really good job. So, you can accomplish so much if you don't care who gets the credit. You ever had that time where you work really hard on something and somebody comes up to you and they just point to the person next to you and say, really good job. And you are just fuming inside. I worked so hard, and you're grinding your teeth, and you're just like, I can't believe that person didn't realize my effort. And then 2 weeks later, the exact opposite happens, where you get congratulated for something you really didn't do a whole lot other than go to that meeting, and they're like, good job on that work. You're like, thank you, you're welcome. Because are we going to tell them that we didn't do it? Probably not. I think at the end of the day, it evens itself out. I think it's about 50-50 when they do that. Here you go. Thank you. Round of applause. Good job, Zach. Thank you. All right. How you doing? What's your name? Maza. Pleasure. Chris. This is the hardest one.
Let's do it.
All right.
Do I get 3 tries?
No, you don't. It's all right. I didn't give the other people 3 tries. That's not
No,
fair.
it's harder.
That's not fair. It's equity. Come on, we can do this. All right. Here we go. You will not get indigestion.
What?
You will not get indigestion.
Is there an if?
Nope. Oh, there is an if, yes, that is true. But I can't help you. You're supposed to finish it.
Sorry, my shot. You will not get indigestion if you take Pepto-Bismol.
That is true. I will tell you what. One, here you go. Round of applause. That is. You get that really fast. Yeah, that's a hard one. And you know what? Every time I do this, that's always the answer. They always say that. I don't know how that leads to leadership or humility, but you have to say something. No, I get you. You won't get indigestion if you swallow your pride. Any Pulp Fiction fans in the house? Pulp Fiction? So there's this part, Bruce Willis, Marcellus Wallace. If you haven't seen the movie, Marcellus Wallace is paying Bruce Willis to throw a fight, and he's having a conversation about the fight. You know, you may have this feeling at the back of your neck that's telling you not to do this. That's pride messing with you. He didn't say pride messing with you. But, and then he had a suggestion for what to do with that pride. I won't say it now because we're filming this. But that's what you do about pride. Because pride will make you do some crazy things. Like no rational person would do until pride rears its ugly head. So pride's a powerful thing. But if you swallow your pride, you will not get indigestion. So yes, let's always remember to stay humble. But wait, there is more. Remember that cute kid that I brought forward at the second or third slide. So CJ's here to help me prove a point. So we're gonna go back when he was younger. Easter. So for all the parents in the room, you know what Easter means. Easter means cute outfit time. Cute outfit time. So I'm gonna show you a photo. CJ's first Easter outfit. I know. If you remember anything about this presentation, like, man, he's got a cute kid. He really does. So yes, and for the parents, you know, there's this photo, and then there was a photo 30 seconds later. Hat's gone, bow tie's gone, screaming around. So this is CJ, first Easter photo. Here's CJ 1 year later. Doubly cute, I know. Yes, he is. But when you look at this, you think, wow, look how big he's gotten. How much has he grown? So let me ask you this, not physically, because we're all adults, but from your like personal intellectual growth, how much have you grown year over year? Because here's the thing, the only difference between you and the person you are in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, pick a number. The books that you have read, the people that you have met, and the new things you have tried. There are people who are just stuck in comfort, who don't want to change. But if we're going to lead, if we're going to make that impact, what are you willing to try? Who are you willing to meet? You chose to sign up for Impact Denver. Fantastic. What's next? And it doesn't just have to just be all growth like that. What are you doing for fun? I, at the beginning of the pandemic, picked up pickleball. Any pickleball players in the house? Because you know, it's funny, when you think pickleball, you don't think me. And I love it. I've been in competitions. I jokingly say, half serious, when I retire, I'm going to be a senior pickleball player. From just this wild idea, like, I want to get pickleball a shot because outside, pandemic, stay away from each other, like, that's what I did. And that's what it's morphed into. What are you willing to try? Are you going to look like CJ year over year? Or is it going to be the same photo? I've got a bonus for you. One more thing. Make sure I get this right. And I don't have a gift card, but here's my question for you. If you don't ask, how do we finish that sentence? Raise your hand. We don't ask. You don't ask what? Are you sure? Feel like she raised her hand and scratched her cheek.
We'll never learn.
Yes. Not it. I thought you were close. I just see everything.
I was going to say, you never know.
Yes. Not it. We're good. We're getting there. Let's see. You all you want to try again? All right, let's go.
You won't receive.
That is true. Still not it. If you don't ask,
You won't learn.
we're getting close. No. Yes?
The answer's always no.
The answer is no. If you don't ask, the answer is no. So, I don't know, I watch a lot of TV. I watch a little bit of TV, not a lot. But a few years ago, one of my favorite programs was American Ninja Warrior. Was I the only person that watched that? Anybody else? I mean, it's a fascinating show where you can see people, they see these amazing obstacles that they can overcome. And you can never tell who's going to be successful. Because you'll see this person that's really built and then they fall off the first obstacle. And you see this person's like 5'0", 90 pounds wet, and they just soar through it. I mean, it's just this amazing program. I just love it, watching that it's about the human spirit. So if you weren't aware, American Ninja Warrior has filmed here in Denver. They've done it a couple times, right in front of the city and county building. And so as city council person, we get all these emails, Office of Special Events, these are all the things that are happening in Denver. And I remember one time getting an email like, American Ninja Warrior is coming to Denver. I'm like, wow, this is so cool. So I called the executive director of the Office of Special Events. And I was like, hey, I hear American Ninja Warrior is coming. She's like, yes. I'm like, that's awesome. Can I run the course? And there's like this silence. So I was like, no one's asked me that before. I don't know. Well, Chris, let me find out. So I didn't get to run the course, but let me tell you this. The day before they film, where everything is set up, they have guinea pigs. I mean, they have people go through the obstacles so the real athletes don't get hurt. And so I will tell you this, the water is very cold. It's not heated. And it was so much fun. I got to do 2 obstacles, failed miserably at them both. But here's the crazy thing. All I did was ask. I just asked. Well, what if she had said no? I'd been the exact person I was before I asked. But we are afraid. We're afraid to ask, to put ourselves out there. I want you to have the mindset, like I want to be told no several times a day, a week, a month, because I'm going to ask to do something that could have amazing effects down the road. We don't even know. Have that mentality of, hey, that's what I'm going to ask. Because again, we're here to make an impact, and we are here to lead. Hey, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Congratulations again. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thank you.